Good evening, everybody. Brian Neubert here once again in the pale moonlight of Mackey Arena. This time following Purdue's 104-68 win over Iowa. At least we think the score was 104-68. Iowa still back in its locker room, hand counting all of its jump shots. A huge win for Purdue, obviously. A huge win in more ways than one. But then again, I mean, at this point for Purdue, they're all huge. Even the ones that aren't huge are huge, because Purdue is in a situation where its margin for error is basically the width of this piece of paper. If Purdue wants to make the NCAA tournament, which obviously it does, Purdue needs good wins and they need a lot of wins. And there's not very many opportunities left. You have a quad one win on your home floor. You need it. You desperately, desperately need it. Now you have to go get some away from your home floor, which obviously all along has been the piece of the puzzle that has fallen under the couch for this team. But once again, Purdue dominates on its home floor against a good team. I think obviously what drove this game more than anything was effort. I mean, I think obviously Purdue shoots well at home typically, but the difference maker in this game was simply effort, just like it was against Wisconsin, largely what it was against Michigan State. Effort. I mean, what Purdue did in the first 5 to 7 minutes of this game was the ultimate tone setter for this game. Purdue's offensive rebounding, on a night when Purdue made 19 threes, its offensive rebounding was probably the singular difference in this game because of the start it got Purdue off to. And offensive rebounding is simply, effort. It's simply, quote-unquote, want to. Evan Boudreau, Nogel Eastern, those guys got Purdue off to a great start, really set a tone. I'm going to say the term set a tone a bunch of times here, so bear with me. But those two guys really set a tone for this entire game after Travion Williams really got Purdue off to a great start. I don't want to say almost single-handedly, but he made plays on 3 consecutive possessions, including some out-of-character plays where he strips an Iowa guard, hedging a ball screen, strips it, steals it, goes for a layup. I mean, that's not what you expect 270-pounders to do. In fact, I'm not sure that's necessarily what Purdue wants Travion Williams trying to do, because a lot of the time when a big man like that reaches in on a ball screen, guess what happens? Whistle. But those first 3 sequences of this game, I think, I'd have to go back through my notes if I can even read by handwriting. I probably cannot. He really got Purdue off to a great start, and then Eastern and Evan Boudreau on the offensive glass really got Purdue off to a great start in this game, and Purdue never looked back. I mean, to Purdue's credit, too, in these games, 29 over Virginia, 29 over Michigan State, whatever it was against Wisconsin, and now this, Purdue is getting these big leads and never looking back. I know Michigan State made a little run at the start of the second half, but Purdue is showing a bit of a, kiss the curb sort of element here with these guys when they've got them way down on their home floor. They're not really letting up in any way. Purdue started the second half really good again here, has started second halves pretty well in these games, and just has shown a sort of killer instinct up big that speaks to a maturity as a team, which is confounding because a lot of Purdue's issues on the road scream of immaturity as a team. It's just, this is such a difficult Purdue team to figure out. If you can get inside their heads collectively, you would probably have a skill that could make you millions and millions of dollars. But Purdue can look really good offensively too at home. This is an offensive team with challenges, obviously, as has been evidenced all season long. Tonight, Purdue looked really good on offense. Purdue executed really well on offense. I thought Eric Hunter did a great job with the ball in his hands. He's making really good decisions. He's making plays for other people. Both of the big guys, I thought, did really good things. Matt Harms played well. Purdue obviously shot the hell out of the ball. Evan Boudreau played really, really well on offense. Aaron Wheeler did some really positive things. Just a great offensive game for Purdue. That being said, Iowa, look at me. If you give up 104 points to this Purdue team, this is not, the greatest offensive team in college basketball. Purdue would not tell you it's the greatest offensive team in college basketball. You give up 104 points to these guys, you need to take a long look in the defensive mirror, and you need to do a little bit of soul searching here. And I know style of play goes into this. Iowa tends to give up a lot of points in part because they play at a certain pace, they play a certain style. But again, 104 points against Purdue. 61 points at halftime was more or as many points as Purdue scored in 9 full games prior. That was a whole game's worth of points for Purdue before halftime. That is a credit to Purdue for sure, but Iowa's got to, if they want to, they're obviously having a really good season, but if they want to be viable here at the end of the season for a Big Ten title, if they want to be really good next year, which, by the way, this could be a top 10 team in the preseason next year. If Garza comes back, if they bring this team together, if they get Jordan Bohannon back, Jordan Bohannon, who I keep inexplicably calling Jeff Horner, who played at Iowa like 15 years ago. I have no idea why I call him Jeff Horner, but I can't stop calling him Jeff Horner. Iowa gets him back next year. This is a potential top 10 team in the country next year in the preseason. But they're never going to do anything if they can't stop somebody. They're never going to do anything really big. They're never going to win the Big Ten to me. They're never going to make a really, really big run in the NCAA tournament unless they can stop somebody. Again, style of play is part of this, but you've got to be able to stop somebody. And, to Purdue's credit and Iowa's detriment, Iowa couldn't stop Purdue to save its life tonight. Purdue shot really well, but Purdue was getting great shots all over the place. The one really tough three I remember Purdue making was the play. Basically, Jihad Proctor did to Iowa what Geo Baker did to Purdue at Rutgers, where he's stuck in the corner, he fumbles the catch, he's pinned down, there's 1 second on the shot clock, he pulls one out of his you-know-what. That was a huge play because, as huge as a play can be when you're up 25 points in the second half, whatever it was. That was a really big play, though, because stuff like that heads off runs. That has to be demoralizing to Iowa. Had to probably go a long way in making sure Iowa didn't make a run here. But Purdue played great on offense. Purdue played well on defense. No Joe Eastern. I thought this was a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year resume booster for him because Joe Wieskamp is really good, really good, really, really, really good. And he was the Big Ten's 4th leading scorer, but he's a better player than I think his numbers even indicate. And he was a total non-factor in this game. 8 points doesn't even tell the story of how little of a factor he was, because 2 of his points came on a run out of a sloppy pass turned over by Purdue. There was a transition 3 that had nothing to do with who was guarding him. I think he got 1 bucket off Nogel Eastern. That was a jumper with a hand in his face in the first half. Eastern just did a great job. But, obviously Eastern only plays 18 and a half minutes, so he wasn't on Wieskamp every one of Wieskamp's 26.23 seconds of playing time, so this was more than just Eastern. But Eastern, in his head-to-head time on Joe Wieskamp, again, was Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year good to me. This was a really good game for Eastern, too. This is kind of his sort of model. Don't force anything offensively. Take what they give you. Be a good ball mover. He has 6 assists to 1 turnover. Be a good rebounder, and he was one of the guys who set the tone on the offensive glass. And then defend like crazy, and that's exactly what he did. But again, everyone played well in this game. Evan Boudreau was great. Eric Hunter, I thought, was really good. Sasha Stefanovic obviously made shots. I thought Matt Harms was really good. Travion Williams, again, gets Purdue off to a great start. Aaron Wheeler does some really positive things, in the totality of his performance. I don't know if it was a complete game necessarily, but he did some really positive things for them. He was around the ball. He was on the offensive glass. He ran the floor. He made a 3. The threes take the backseat to the energy. When he gives you the energy, I think that's more important than the threes. He did a really good job in that sense. Jihad Proctor, again, resurgence is the best way to put this. He's been really good the last 3 games. Made a really big shot at Northwestern. Obviously, just he and Evan Boudreau. Is this senior urgency? It must be, because these 2 guys, when the light at the end of the tunnel comes into view, sometimes guys bring their best when their teams need it the most. And right now, Purdue needs it the most from these 2 guys, and they're both playing at a very, very high level right now. Evan Boudreau at home has been unbelievable. He's been really good. I thought he was pretty good at Rutgers. I thought he did some really positive things at Northwestern, too. He's been good, and he's been consistent. Jihad Proctor has been good the last 3 games. Obviously, he doesn't do a whole lot at Northwestern until he makes the second biggest shot of the game, if not the most important shot of the game. Because if that shot's not made, the most important shot of the game isn't even possible, most likely. So Proctor has been huge for Purdue lately. Boudreau has been huge for Purdue lately. The reality of this is Purdue needed this one bad. This is a quad 1 win. Purdue needs all the wins it can get, let alone the quad one wins it can get. This just goes to show Purdue is an NCAA tournament caliber team. They have showed in what they've been able to do at home who they've been able to beat and how bad they've been able to beat them. This is a team that is an NCAA tournament caliber of team. Now, that's all fine and good because there are probably dozens of teams out there who aren't going to make the NCAA tournament who are saying, hey, we belong in the NCAA tournament, we're good enough to play in the NCAA tournament. It's not a matter of whether you're good enough to belong in the NCAA tournament. It's a matter of can you build the resume. And right now, Marquette got away, Florida State got away. Butler, you were a little bit shorthanded, but that got away. Texas got away. Texas isn't a resume-making win, but it was a loss nonetheless. Nebraska kills you because it hurts your win total, and it's a bad loss. But Purdue's got some real work to do still. It may be an NCAA tournament caliber team, as it showed against Virginia, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and now Iowa, who are all going to play in the NCAA tournament, obviously. I have to check on Virginia. I'm pretty sure they're going to make it, but I haven't checked in a while. But Purdue just may be an NCAA tournament caliber team that just doesn't have the resume. That's not to say they can't have the resume here in a couple weeks, but you had to have this one. And these games lately where you had to have them, Purdue, again, has left no doubt. Now, the problem here is that Purdue hasn't been able to do it on the road. As I wrote in our breakdown earlier, these wins like this that seem like turning points, that seem like springboards, they don't matter beyond themselves, beyond the line on the resume, until Purdue shows it can take success at home and parlay it into success on the road. So far, that has not happened. It has to happen because that's Purdue's only path to the NCAA tournament. Purdue cannot lose the rest of its road games and make the NCAA tournament, most likely. But what this game also serves as a reminder of is that, as maddening for Purdue as this season has been, being so good at home at times, yet so not so good on the road, Purdue's not alone. Because, look, when Purdue is looking at Iowa here, Purdue's looking in the mirror. Because Iowa hasn't won a Big Ten road game either. And Purdue's not getting beat on the road the way that Iowa got beat here tonight. But it's the same deal. Iowa's unbeaten in the Big Ten at home. They're winless on the road in the Big Ten, other than Northwestern, which incidentally is the same team that Purdue, snuck by. So Purdue, for all the idiosyncrasies of its weird season, of its turbulent up and down season, it's not alone. And that just goes to show you that winning on the road in the Big Ten this year is really, really hard. The road is hell. And that's what makes what Illinois has been able to do this year so incredible. Incredible might be overstating it. But impressive, I should say. That's a much better word, a much more understated, less hyperbolic word. But Purdue can take some consolation in its season, I guess, out of the sheer principle of misery loves company. Purdue hasn't been able to win a Big Ten road game other than Northwestern. Iowa's ranked 17th in the country, headed for the NCAA tournament. They're in the exact same position. It just goes to show you that what all has happened to Purdue this season, Purdue is not alone in the world. It's not all by itself struggling the way it has struggled at times. But, Purdue's been really, really good at home this season. Has to find that consistency still. That's its only path to the NCAA tournament. But obviously, part of its path to the NCAA tournament is protecting its home floor. This was a big one. This was a really big one. Rutgers is going to be a big one. Michigan's going to be a big one. Ohio State's going to be a big one. Indiana, another team who's in the same position as Purdue, can't win on the road, is going to be another big one as well. Purdue should win all its home games from here on out. I think it'll get Rutgers. It should beat Michigan. I think it'll get Ohio State. It should beat Indiana here. Whether it can beat Indiana on Saturday in Bloomington, that kind of remains to be seen. Obviously, Purdue's body of work on the road is a mixed bag at best. Indiana is always a tough place to play just because Purdue's had some success there. Doesn't necessarily guarantee it anything. You remember the rock fight Purdue had to win last year when it was the better team. You remember some of the rock fights Purdue had to win before that when it was the better team. The Caleb Swanigan, Thomas Bryant game being one. There's a game years ago with Robbie Hummel and them when they were decidedly better than that team. They needed a late three from Tyrone Johnson to win that game. Being the better team doesn't matter as much in that rivalry. Purdue isn't the decidedly better team than Indiana this year. I think on its home floor it'll win. I think it's going to have to overcome some things to win in Bloomington. things that it hasn't been able to really overcome all season long on the road. So we shall see. But the most important part of right now for Purdue is that Purdue needed this win over Iowa and got it in no uncertain terms. No uncertain terms whatsoever. 104-68, Purdue over Iowa. We'll let you know in the morning if that becomes official. Iowa's still back there hand counting all its jumpers, as I said before. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. Thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. And please wish me well for the 3-block walk back to my car in the ice, in the snow, in the frigidness. I had a concussion a couple years ago, and I feel like I'm walking around, my head is a balloon, and I'm walking around in a world full of pins when the sidewalk is icy, when the road is icy, whatever it may be. So please, if you're watching this, cross your fingers for me. Thank you. Have a good night.